Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Pastor Jed, and this is another edition of Apologetics in Prophecy. The date is January 25th, 2019. And what we're going to be doing with this show moving forward is we're going to be looking at things that have prophetic significance that we are living in the last days and approaching them from apologetics, looking at the Bible. What does the Bible say about this? And is this biblical? Because, a lot of people say that we're living in the last days, and they use a lot of things and a lot of hype and a lot of things that we like to call newspapers apologetics, and that's where they use, or newspaper eschatology. It's where they form their opinion of where we're at in the last days by whatever the newspapers have to say. And there are news headlines that directly show us that we're living in the last days. And we're going to look at one today. And every week we're going to look at a little bit. But we want to look at, a lot of people will ask us, how do we know that we're living in the last days? What is the number one sign that you and I should look for to know that we're living at the last of the last days, knowing that Jesus can come back at any moment? The imminent return of Jesus Christ is what we long for. It's what the church has always looked for. But there are times and seasons that we can see that point to this specific era that we live in that screams that prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes. Well, we're going to look at, this week, we're going to look at the nation of Israel. You cannot get around the fact that the nation of Israel, the Jews being in their homeland as a sovereign nation, is not a powerful prophetic sign that we are living in the last days. Now we've talked about this before, and it's pretty popular with a lot of the Reformed teachers that say that Israel being back in the land is just a coincidence, because they believe in a doctrine that was that Luther believed in, and some of the early reformers. They believed in what was called replacement theology, which was actually started by a person named Augustine way back in the 3rd and 4th century. And when the church became part of the state of Rome, it just became something that they thought. And what replacement theology basically is it's saying that all the promises in the Old Testament that directly relate future to the nation of Israel and the blessings upon the nation of Israel that are future have all been replaced by the church, because the Jews rejected Jesus, and therefore they lost out. They are gone. They are no longer, those promises are null and void. Well, we have a lot of problems with that. And the number one problem that you have to get by is because the Bible says in the Old Testament that what we see today with the nation of Israel being back in the land in unbelief is fulfilled literally. Remember, we talked about the literal sense makes sense. Choose no other sense, lest you come up with nonsense. So the nation of Israel, back in the land, tells us that we are in the last of the last days. Now, there's a powerful Old Testament prophecy that Israel fulfilled on May 14th, 1948. That was a very important day in world history, and in history according to God, because the nation, that was the day that Israel in one day became a nation. It was before that they were in the land. They did not have sovereign control of the land. There had been, decrees to try to bring them back. Everybody recognized that was the nation that belonged to Israel thousands of years ago. And, God worked out the tragedy of World War II, the horrific things that happened to the people, the Jews. God used that event to bring Israel to have enough sympathy around the world to a people that had been persecuted throughout their history, to give them a land. And so when the declaration was made on May 14th, 1948, in one day, Israel had become a nation. Well, we read in Isaiah chapter 66, in verses 7 and 8, this exact thing happened. This is speaking of the future of Israel, the regathering of the people. Isaiah had already prophesied throughout all the book of Isaiah that before Judah would fall. This is during he prophesied about the northern kingdom falling and then the southern kingdom falling, going into captivity. But then he would speak of a future time. Isaiah has a lot to say about the millennial kingdom. We've talked a lot about that. But he also has a lot to say about the nation of Israel. And let me read verses 7 and 8 out of chapter 66 of the book of Isaiah. It says, "Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came, she delivered a male child. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such a thing?" I mean, who's ever heard? I mean, everybody who knows somebody who's had a baby, ask any woman who's had a child. You know when that child's coming. You're not going to tell me that, oh, well, it just happened, right? You always know when you go through 9 months of carrying this child, and then you get the labor pains, and then you get the contractions, and then when you got to push and pull that baby out. Well, what he's saying is, before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came, she delivered a male child. Who has heard such a thing? Nobody has. That's the point. Who has seen such a thing? Nobody. That's a rhetorical question. Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Can the earth do that? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children. That right there says exactly what happened on May 14th, 1948. You're looking at, and some of us were alive then. In your lifetime, or at least one generation away, history that cannot be denied, it happened. The whole world knows it. Biblical prophecy was fulfilled in our life. That is an amazing thing when you think about it. When we think about prophecy, when we talk about apologetics and prophecy, we should be amazed and astonished that we can say that we know that prophecy is being fulfilled, because it has. And we see it being fulfilled. Interesting. Some of the things our world is going crazy right now, but there's a lot of prophetic things that are happening. And this week I'm going to look at one. December 6th was an important date. December 6th, 2017, was fulfilled this last year. We'll talk about that next week or the week after. We might have to wait 2 weeks. But December 6th, our president made a proclamation. That was the day that he announced that he was going to recognize, and the United States recognized, Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Okay, so some of the things we need to understand, and my light went out here, there we go. One of the things we need to understand, how prophetically powerful that is. Whatever you want to think of President Trump, I don't really care. This has nothing to do with him or his person or his presidency. So you have to understand that Jews look at our president differently than we do. They look at America as either being a friend or a foe, depending on which administration. And this administration is very friendly to Israel, and they love that. So they recognize that. And so, interestingly enough, that we have a headline. This is from Breaking Israel News. It was also on ABC and a lot of the main networks. But the headline is, Sanhedrin mints silver half shekel with images of Trump and Cyrus. Now, if you don't know who Cyrus is, Cyrus was the Persian leader that we read about in the Bible, the one that was mentioned in Isaiah 100 years before he was even born, that he would be the one to let the Jews go back and rebuild into their homeland and rebuild their temple. And he did. And he's mentioned in Daniel, he's mentioned in Chronicles and Kings. We see Cyrus was the one that came and did that. And so that was an important point for the Jews. Cyrus was good to the Jews, so they recognize him. They acknowledge Cyrus as being a great leader that did something good for the Jews. whether he was a good king, whatever he did, weren't looking at his personality or his character or what kind of leader in Persia he was. They looked at him being a foreign leader that did something good for the Jews. So they come out with this shekel, and I actually bought one of these. They initially did 1,000. I think they printed more. It's an educational center in Israel that's actually raising money to build the third temple, the tribulation temple, which we'll talk about more next week. We're going to focus more on the nation Israel being a prophetic sign, so we don't take up too much time. But I want to show you the coin. The front of the coin looks like this. Let me show it to you. Can you see that? See that coin right there? Okay, that right there, it has a picture of Donald Trump, and behind him is Cyrus, okay? And this is a centennial coin. It's very important because we're talking about the nation Israel. It's a Cyprus, Bellflower, and Trump Declaration, 1917 to 2017. So it was a 100-year anniversary coin for recognizing that the Balfour Declaration, if you don't know, was a British mandate that was in British after World War I that mandated that the Jews would have a homeland back in the land that they were from. So that's what started from, and that came out of the Zionist movement. Jews were already moving back into the land, buying up property, draining the swamps and starting to grow agriculture. And the land welcomed back the Jews. And so that started actually with that. And again, here are the Jews recognizing three different world leaders that had recognized and had helped them as their nation being back in the land. The back of the coin has a picture. If you can see that, can you see that right there? See that? That's a picture of their new temple that they're going to build. And we're going to talk about that next week. But for us, that's pretty interesting. This coin right here has such strong, this proves that what I just read is a biblical prophecy that has been fulfilled, that I'm holding tangibly in my hand, proof of it being fulfilled. That should be an amazing thing. And that should get us excited for the imminent return of the Lord. You know, I don't know about you, but I've been reevaluating my priorities. And one of the resonating topics of the Bible that has been just screaming since the beginning of this year and through me and in me is loving one another and operating with the love of God. And as we see that day approaching, as we see, we're to stir up one another for love and for good works as we see the day approaching. Not forsaking the assembly together as such is the manner of some, is what it says in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to be prepared and out there doing the work, loving people, because you know what? The Lord's going to come again like that. And a lot of people that are around us are going to get left behind. For what? The tribulation period. And we're going to talk about some prophecies that are pointing to that too over the next few weeks. And so that's what this program's about. Taking a news headline. Have you ever heard of the Sanhedrin? The Sanhedrin are from the New Testament. Now they're back in the land and they're preparing. Do you know that they have everything needed to start the temple? All they need is a building. All they need to do is build the temple on the Temple Mount, and they can start sacrifices today. They have everything they need to do it. And so it's just an amazing thing. So take to heart that we are living in the last days. Jesus is returning at any moment. And remember, if somebody asks you, how do you know? You can point to Isaiah chapter 66, verses 7 and 8, and tell them that was fulfilled on May 14th, 1948. And you can open up, you can Google it, you can see it. It's history that cannot be denied, and the Bible does not lie. It's true. Prophecies are coming to pass, and there's many more. And just keep watching this show, these little 15-minute clips, and we'll try to keep you educated, informed, and ready to defend the faith once and for all during these last days. So you guys have a great week. I'll see some of you on Sunday. God bless you all.